A single dad's C.I. saw him at a supermarket. Her whispered threat changed everything. Cole Bennett's hands trembled as he reached for the discounted milk, the only kind he could afford for Harper this week. Monday's layoff list had his name on it. He knew that much. Between the dairy shelves and the checkout line, he spotted her, Vivian Cross, the new CEO, standing frozen like she'd wandered into the wrong world. Then a man in an expensive suit stepped close, hissing through his teeth that she couldn't lead without a man. Vivian went pale, her eyes locked on Cole. She moved fast, whispering one sentence that made his blood stop. "Pretend you're my boyfriend, or you're fired." 3 seconds. That's all he had. Cole had no time to think. The man in the suit turned his head, scanning the aisle like he owned the place. Vivian's fingers dug into Cole's wrist. Her grip was cold, desperate. He'd seen her face on the company newsletter last month when they announced the leadership change. New CEO, first woman to hold the position. The warehouse guys had joked about it over lunch. Now she was holding on to him like he was the only thing keeping her upright. He let the milk carton drop back into the cooler. His mind raced through the math. Rent due in 5 days. Harper's field trip permission slip sitting on the counter at home because he couldn't afford the $20 fee. The envelope from the hospital still unopened because he already knew what the number would look like. Monday's meeting in the break room where they'd call out names and hand over severance packets. His name was on that list. He'd heard it from someone who'd heard it from someone else. Vivian's voice came out sharper this time, low enough that only he could hear. "Please, just stand here. Act like you know me." The man in the suit was closer now. Older. Expensive watch. Hair that looked like it cost more to maintain than Cole made in a week. He stopped 3 feet away and looked Vivian up and down, like she was a problem he was solving in real time. Then his eyes shifted to Cole. The judgment was instant. Vivian's hand slid into Cole's. Her palm was sweating. "Vivian," the man said. His voice was smooth, controlled the kind of tone that came from years of getting his way. "I didn't know you shopped at places like this." Vivian's jaw tightened. She didn't let go of Cole's hand. "Brandon? I didn't expect to see you here either." Brandon. The name clicked. Cole had heard it before. Someone in HR had mentioned it in passing. Ex-husband. Still on the board of directors. Still had enough pull to make Vivian's job harder than it needed to be. Brandon's eyes stayed on Cole for another beat, then returned to Vivian with something that looked like pity. "You're making this harder on yourself," Brandon said. His tone didn't change. "The board's already talking. You know that. A woman in your position needs stability. Support. You can't lead a company like ours if you're alone. People notice." Vivian's fingers tightened around Cole's. Her voice came out steady, but Cole could feel the tremor running through her hand. "I'm not alone." Brandon's eyebrows lifted. He looked at Cole again, this time, slower, taking in the worn jacket, the scuffed boots, the kind of tired that came from pulling double shifts in a freezing warehouse. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Really?" Vivian didn't flinch. She turned toward Cole, and for a second, he saw the calculation behind her eyes. She was weighing options, measuring risk. Then she leaned in slightly, just enough to sell it, and her voice softened in a way that felt rehearsed, but not fake. "Brandon, this is Cole. My boyfriend." The word hung in the air between them. Cole felt his stomach drop. He didn't move, didn't speak. Vivian's eyes were locked on his, silently begging him not to blow this. Brandon tilted his head, studying them both, like he was looking for cracks in the story. "Boyfriend?" Brandon repeated. The word came out flat. "How long has this been going on?" Vivian didn't miss a beat. "A few months. We've been keeping it private." Brandon's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Private? Of course." He shifted his weight, crossing his arms. "And what do you do?" "Cole." Cole's throat was dry. He forced himself to meet Brandon's gaze. "I work at the company. Warehouse." Brandon's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Amusement, maybe, or confirmation of something he'd already assumed. A warehouse worker. How convenient. Vivian's voice cut in before Cole could respond. "We should go. We have dinner plans." Brandon didn't move. He looked at Vivian for a long moment, then at Cole, then back to Vivian. "The board meeting is Monday. You know that. They're going to ask questions about a lot of things." He let the words sit there heavy and deliberate. Then he stepped back, adjusting his jacket. "Enjoy your dinner." He walked away without looking back. Vivian didn't let go of Cole's hand until Brandon turned the corner and disappeared toward the front of the store. When she finally released him, Cole felt the absence of her grip like a sudden drop in temperature. She stepped back, running a hand through her hair. Her composure cracked for just a second, and he saw the exhaustion underneath. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't have another option." Cole stared at her. His mind was still catching up to what had just happened. "You just told your ex-husband I'm your boyfriend." "I know." Vivian's voice was clipped, controlled again. "And now he's going to tell the board, which means we have a problem." Cole felt the anger rising in his chest, slow and steady. "We don't have a problem. You have a problem. I don't even know you." Vivian looked at him directly, and for the first time he saw something other than desperation. She looked tired, cornered, like someone who'd been fighting too long and was running out of moves. "You're on the layoff list. Monday morning. Your name is third from the top." Cole's breath caught. He didn't ask how she knew. The answer didn't matter. She was the CEO. She knew everything. Vivian took a step closer, lowering her voice. "I can take you off that list. Right now. Tonight. One phone call. In exchange for what? Pretend to be my boyfriend until the board meeting. That's it. Show up to a few dinners. Be seen with me in public. Let people think we're together. After Monday, we're done. You keep your job. I keep mine." Cole felt the weight of it settling over him. He thought about Harper, about the permission slip, about the envelope from the hospital, about the milk he'd been holding 30 seconds ago because it was the only thing he could afford. Vivian was watching him waiting. She didn't look like a CEO anymore. She looked like someone who'd run out of options and was betting everything on a stranger. "What if I say no?" Cole asked. Vivian's expression didn't change. "Then you're fired Monday morning, and I'll be out by the end of the week. Brandon will make sure of it." Cole looked down at his hands. They were still shaking. He thought about the 3 seconds he'd had to make a choice in the dairy aisle. Turned out he still didn't have an answer. But he knew what happened if he walked away. Vivian seemed to sense the shift. She reached into her bag and pulled out a business card, writing something on the back. "That's my personal number," she said, holding it out. "If you say yes, call me tonight. We'll work out the details. If you say no, I understand. But either way, I need to know now." Cole took the card. The paper felt thin between his fingers. Vivian turned and walked toward the exit without waiting for an answer. He stood there in the dairy aisle holding a business card in one hand and nothing in the other. The cooler hummed beside him. Somewhere in the distance, a shopping cart squeaked across the tile floor. He looked down at the card. Her handwriting was small, precise, controlled. He thought about Harper, about the field trip she'd miss, about the job he'd lose, about the 3 seconds that had already passed. He pulled out his phone. Cole called her that night after Harper went to bed. Vivian answered on the second ring. Her voice was quieter than it had been in the supermarket, like she'd been waiting, but wasn't sure he'd actually go through with it. They agreed to meet the next morning. It was Wednesday. 4 days until the board meeting. They met at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the company headquarters. She was already there when he arrived, sitting in the back corner, with her hands wrapped around a cup she hadn't touched. She looked different without the panic, sharper, more in control. She gestured to the chair across from her, and Cole sat down. The terms came out clinical and precise. They'd say they met 6 months ago. A chance encounter. Nothing dramatic. He'd asked her out. She'd said yes. They'd kept it quiet because of the professional complications. She'd cover the story. He just had to show up and not contradict her. 6 months, Cole repeated. He tried to imagine what his life had looked like half a year ago. Harper had still been in the hospital then. He'd been working 60-hour weeks just to keep up with the bills. People are going to ask questions, Vivian nodded. Let them. We don't owe anyone details. Just stay consistent. Same story, every time. What about Harper? Vivian's expression shifted slightly. Your daughter. She's 7, right? Cole didn't ask how she knew. She'll notice if I'm suddenly spending time with someone. She'll ask questions. Then we tell her the truth, Vivian said. Not the whole truth. Just enough. We're helping each other. She doesn't need to know the rest. Cole looked down at the table. The wood grain was worn smooth from years of use. He thought about how many conversations had happened here. How many deals. How many lies dressed up as something else. Vivian reached into her bag and pulled out a folded check. She set it on the table between them. Cole didn't touch it. $10,000, she said quietly. You'll get this after the board meeting. That's the agreement. I'm not paying you up front. This only works if we both see it through. Cole stared at the check lying on the table. The number was written out in her precise handwriting. $10,000. It was more money than he'd seen in one place in years. Enough to clear the hospital debt. Enough to buy Harper new shoes. Enough to stop lying awake at night doing math that never added up. But it was still 4 days away. 4 days of pretending. 4 days of risk. This isn't charity, she added. It's a transaction. You're providing a service. I'm paying for it after you deliver. That's all this is. Cole met her eyes. And if something goes wrong before Monday, then we both lose, Vivian said. But at least we tried. She pulled out her phone and started typing. I'm taking you off the layoff list right now. By tomorrow morning, your supervisor will get the updated roster. You're safe. That part is done regardless of what happens Monday. Cole felt the relief and the guilt hit him at the same time. She was giving him job security before he'd earned it. Before he'd done anything. It felt wrong and necessary at the same time. What do I tell people at work? Nothing, Vivian said. Let them draw their own conclusions. If anyone asks directly, just say we're dating. Don't elaborate. The less you say, the fewer holes they can poke in the story. She slid the check back into her bag. The transaction was clear now. 4 days, 1 board meeting, then the money and freedom for both of them. Cole nodded. Okay, I'm in. The first test came 2 days later. Vivian wanted him to attend a charity gala that Friday night. She sent over a suit Thursday afternoon. It arrived at his apartment in a garment bag with a note that said the tailor would meet him that evening to make adjustments. The suit fit better than anything Cole had ever worn. Harper watched him try it on with wide eyes. Why do you have a fancy suit, Dad? She asked from the doorway of his bedroom. Cole looked at himself in the mirror. He barely recognized the person staring back. I have to go to a work thing tomorrow night. It's formal. With Miss V, Cole turned around. Harper was holding her stuffed rabbit, the one she'd had since she was 3. Her expression was curious, but careful, like she was trying to figure out if this was something she should worry about. Cole knelt down so he was at her level. Yeah, with Miss V. She's my friend. We're helping each other out with some work stuff. Harper tilted her head. Is she your girlfriend? The question caught Cole off guard. He'd rehearsed answers for co-workers, for strangers, for people at the gala. He hadn't prepared for this. Harper was still watching him, waiting. Cole took a breath. It's complicated, sweetheart. Kind of. But she's nice. I think you'd like her. Harper's face fell slightly. She looked down at her rabbit. Does that mean you don't have time for me anymore? Cole's chest tightened. He pulled Harper into a hug. No. Never. You're the most important person in my life. That's never going to change. This is just something I have to do for work. Okay. Harper nodded against his shoulder, but Cole could feel her uncertainty. He made a mental note to spend Saturday doing something special with her, just the two of them. The gala was held in a hotel ballroom with chandeliers that looked like they cost more than Cole's annual salary. Vivian met him at the entrance. She was wearing a black dress that made her look untouchable. She smiled when she saw him, and it looked almost real. She slipped her arm through his like they'd done this 100 times before. "Just follow my lead," she said quietly. "Smile. Nod. If anyone asks how we met, stick to the story." They walked into the ballroom together. Eyes turned toward them immediately. Cole felt the weight of every stare. Vivian's hand tightened on his arm, but her expression didn't change. She guided him through the crowd, stopping to make introductions. Board members, senior executives, people whose names Cole recognized from the company directory, but had never spoken to. They all looked at him the same way Brandon had, like they were trying to solve a puzzle that didn't make sense. One of the board members, an older man with silver hair and a hard smile, shook Cole's hand and held it a beat too long. "So you're the one Vivian's been hiding?" "Warehouse right." Cole nodded. "That's right." The man's smile widened. "Must be quite a change of pace for you. These events. Vivian's world." Vivian's voice cut in smoothly. "Cole's been very supportive. It's nice to have someone who understands the value of hard work." The man laughed, but it didn't sound friendly. "I'm sure it is." He released Cole's hand and turned back to Vivian. "We'll talk Monday. There's a lot to cover." Vivian's expression didn't shift, but Cole felt her tense beside him. The man walked away. Vivian exhaled slowly, then turned to Cole with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That went well." "Did it?" Cole asked. "You didn't break character. It's all that matters." They spent the rest of the night playing their roles. Vivian introduced him to more people than he could keep track of. Cole smiled, nodded, gave vague answers to questions that felt like traps. By the time they left, his face hurt from holding the expression. Vivian was quiet on the drive back. She dropped him off at his apartment building and sat in the car for a moment before he got out. "You did fine," she said. Her voice was softer than it had been all night. "Better than fine, actually." "Thank you." Cole looked at her. In the dim light from the street lamp, she looked tired. Human. Not like the CEO who'd cornered him in the supermarket.